Today we take on a listener question. Scott, who was listening to a previous episode, reached out to us as he could identify very personally with the concept of getting into your late 40s in a corporate job, kind of knowing that the ground under his feet is shifting and looking to the next phase of his life. Scott has got a lot of options. And so he wrote us an email and he laid his options out to us. So in today's episode, we take on these options, we go through them one by one, and we got to conclude what we think of Scott's options. And then we expand on the power of focus and what focused work and how it is a superpower versus constantly battling FOMO and a paradox of choice out there. It is a fantastic question to have taken on. Thoroughly enjoyed making it. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy listening to it. Anybody in their 40s probably going to identify with today's show. So without further ado, let's get right into the question.
Hello, everybody. Clark Lunt here with Burn Your Boats podcast. I am here with my co-host and business partner, David Shaw. David, I see a big smile on your face. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. I don't know how much I'm smiling. I'm going to try and get through this podcast. I have a 3-year-old who brings home viruses.
Everything.
From that she scrapes from the inside of exotic caves every week and passes them on to her parents. So if you hear a nasally me this week, it's, I've got like bat flu or something like that from my daughter.
Well, you're persevering and, you're doing it for the listeners, right?
Yeah, well, you got to, what did I say? You got to keep on showing up, right?
Yeah. So today, David, this will be a kind of a first episode for us as we're growing kind of our podcast, our listener base. We're seeing a lot of people reach out and they have questions about just about anything and everything, right? And so we've asked, hey, send us your stuff. We'd love to respond to you, whether it's kind of individually or if it actually creates a topic. And today, we thought it was a good enough question that we wanted to. I think it's a topic, David, that it's going to relate to a ton of people in similar stages of their life. So I'm going to introduce a topic, but I'm going to let Scott from Webb City, Missouri. So Scott wrote in, and I'm just going to read it verbatim what he said, and we'll go he said, right now I'm making the plan for an exit. I originally thought I'd go all in on wholesaling, flipping, buy and hold using the burr method. The burr method is you buy it, you renovate it, you rent it out, you refinance, and you repeat. Okay, so it's BRRR. However, I've seen a natural opening to start a property management company through knowing other investors that want a good property management company to run their own stuff. He has a close connection to looks like kind of like a mentor, someone that manages over 1,500 doors up in the, looks like the Illinois area. Never hurts to have friends that manage 1,500 doors, David. And his question is, and he said, maybe it's a good podcast idea. We agree. I hear conflicting ideas about going wide before building up. So we've all heard it all the time. Oh, I got to diversify my income. I got to have multiple legs on my stool, and versus drilling deep in one area and mastering before moving to another and thinking about more than one thing at a time. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Well, Scott, we appreciate the question, and you're going to get our thoughts today. So we're going to call this episode Focus, Not FOMO, okay? And we see this a lot. I know that I've been through it a million times and still fight it probably on a daily basis. David, I know you're kind of in a similar position. So talk to us, David. We kind of talked about the summary of multiple income streams, right? You hear it a lot. You hear side hustles. You hear all the different kind of verbiage as to why should I go out and, be a wholesaler and then do some buy and holds, and then let's learn some drop shipping. Why not, right? Let's kind of get into it and figure out which is the one that works best and then we'll kind of dilute it down and drop the kind of the zeros and figure out which ones are the heroes. So with that being said, David, tell us a little bit about your background. Have you encountered this in your career? Let's go back 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We can go back yesterday. Tell us a little bit about, what your thoughts are on it, and what kind of challenges you faced. And I'm sure you're in a similar situation as we all have with this gentleman that wrote the question.
All right, Clark. So first of all, thank you, Scott, for sending in this question. Clark, to get a little bit of further background. So Scott, before you came on, I'd like to, for the listeners, to get a little bit of further background. So Scott, I believe, is 47 years of age.
Yep.
And my understanding is he has worked in the corporate world for most of his career. And in previous episodes, we discussed exactly why that age group, pretty much between like 42, 43, 44, probably right up to 48, a lot of corporate workers in particular that have, 12, 13, 14 years into their career, they're starting to feel a lack of energy, maybe some boredom. Maybe they can see they're being replaced. Younger people are working below them, and maybe culturally they don't fit into the office anymore. Maybe they're starting to feel that, the younger people are coming in and doing like, staying after 6 or 7 every night, and they need to get home and mind the kids.
Right.
And so this, not imposter syndrome, but this, you know, financial anxiety starts to creep into their lives because they know that this is probably not going to last much longer. It's certainly into their 50s. If you're like 51, 52, 53, my next door neighbor not that long ago, who's worked in a career, I think it was for like 23 years, went to work about 2 months ago on a Monday morning, and they pulled him up at like 11 a.m. and told him he was done. He was never, and he worked there for like 20 odd years.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
Tell him he was done. He wasn't going back to his computer. They were going to give him like 11 weeks pay and thank you for your service.
Right.
And you think, I'd hear about these things in the newspapers, or you might hear about these things, inadvertently. But when you see them up close, it's really shocking to think that you can give 22 or 23 years of service and essentially the best years of your life. And that's what it is. And then it can be over in a snap of somebody else's fingers, completely out of your control. Somebody is essentially burning your boats for you.
Right.
And so to give some context here to the question, Clark, I believe that Scott was in that exact position because he called you and he said, hey, Clark, after you set up a call, he sent in the question and he called you and he said, you know what, in a previous episode, I was listening to it and I felt you were talking directly to me. So if you're out there and you are in your probably mid to late 40s or early 50s, this is probably a very, very important conversation that's going on in your mind. As you look at the second phase, because I firmly believe there's like really, let's face it, 3 phases in your career. You got like your start out phase in your 20s when you kind of learn your craft a little bit. Then you get, maybe 28, 29. You got some experience behind you. You can tell your previous boss, you got lots of energy in front of you. You got a lot of experience now. You can leave your old job behind and go into that, proper career job in your late 20s. And you can really do well in your 30s and into your mid 40s. But that's the phase. So if your 20s is phase 1 and your 30s and early 40s is phase 2, a lot of people struggle getting into phase 3 of their lives. And that's what this conversation is about. So Scott is looking at a whole range of different activities. And specifically, Clark, what was his question to you?
He basically, and it's something that we talk about all the time, is should I go wide or should I go deep, right? Should I get into wholesaling, which is, wholesaling. A lot of people don't understand wholesaling in real estate. Wholesaling, I've asked 10 people out of 10, what is wholesaling? And they say, oh, you buy it and then you just turn around and resell it. So wholesaling is, where you put something on, you put it under contract to buy, let's say at 100,000, and then before you close, you sell the contract to someone else. So wholesaling
Right.
requires wholesaling requires marketing money, and it requires your time, but it doesn't actually require any money. So it's like, should I go? He basically said, well, I want to do wholesaling, flipping, and buy and hold. Well, those are three totally different things that everyone just kind of lumps together. They're different skill sets, they're different techniques, different strategies, different understanding of thing. And so he said, but then he said, well, then I know a guy that's running a property management company, and he's getting asked to fill a void in his community because it sounds like the property managers aren't very good, right? So there is a demand for that service that he is being asked to fulfill through property management. So it's like, should I property manage? Should I
Got
do
it.
a little bit of flipping? Where should I flip? All these different things. So I
Okay.
think the question that we need to really tackle right now, and it's something that I face all the time, and I've had success with, and I've had absolute epic failures, is shiny red ball syndrome. What should I diversify, David? Should I flip a few properties? Should I manage two? Should I property manage? And so I think one of the questions is that I think I see a lot of times is, why do we aspire to get multiple streams of active income? Why don't we just be the best wholesaler you can be, and then just get better and better and find new techniques and invest in yourself? But there's always these things out in the atmosphere that are like, yeah, but you could wholesale, but you could also buy Airbnbs, and then you could manage Airbnbs for other people, right? So Scott, talk
Got
to
it.
us, or David, talk to us a little bit about, what do you think? Why do we
Yeah.
aspire to get multiple streams of active income?
Okay. So to get into Scott's question, right? So Scott's question asks a number of questions. So I am looking at the end of the road career wise, but I'm 47, so I'm not done. And so why people get kind of, his question is, should I flip? Should I wholesale? Should I burr? Right? And should I set up a property management company? And should I buy and hold? All right. So they're completely different. So flipping is a route to making quite a lot of money. It's not without its risks pretty quickly. So if Scott was earning, say, $200,000 in his previous job, it's not all that difficult to flip your way to $200,000 of profit in a year, right? So that's the eating now part, right?
Right.
But flipping doesn't make you wealthy.
Hmm.
Flipping just fixes your right now problem. So then the other question he asked is, should I wholesale? A wholesale to me is, it's a whole different skill set than flipping. So let's just break them out. So a wholesaler is going to go out, he's got to be really good at marketing, right? And he's got to spend a lot of money on marketing, or he's got to spend a lot of time making offers. Okay. So I've never been a wholesaler because I don't like speculating on marketing dollars. Don't like that. I don't like spending $30,000 a month and hoping that I get the right deal that comes through. And wholesaling is also, you're only buying yourself amount of time with the deal. So you get a house on a contract for 30 days. Well, then you've got to put that contract onto somebody else in 30 days. It's very stressful. And so I would say at 47 years of age, probably don't want to be a wholesaler because you're competing with a lot of 24-year-olds. So I would go, that's a big X I made if you're not watching the video. I would nix wholesaling at this age, right? Um, Flipping is something that is probably fairly conducive to a 45 or 47-year-old. It's like, you know, you can find a deal. You can use a wholesaler to get your deal. You can get your deal on the MLS. you're in control and it's a slower process. So, you buy the house, you control the renovation, you control the contractors, you don't have any clients yet. You own it. Mind you, you are funding everything, and you do have either you have the capital to do it or you have a hard money loan on it. So I like the idea of flipping, but flipping is, as we said in an earlier podcast, you have to buy very, very deep at the moment, and you better be ready to be a little bit longer on the market than you were before. And so there's a skill to flipping. It's like, do I just take the property and do the bare minimum and put it out cheap? Because a lot of people want to buy cheaper homes. They're prepared to have a lower quality home, but get it at the right price. Or do you do it stunningly beautiful and, sell it for top dollar? Now we are in a higher rate environment, so the top dollar properties, you should really be in a great neighborhood. Don't over renovate, a lower income neighborhood, and know that every neighborhood has its ceiling, regardless of how big or
Right.
small the house is. So flipping, there's a skill to it, but it's a relatively easy thing to do at 47, in my view. Burring doesn't work at the moment. You're not going to buy a house. You're not going to renovate it. You're not going to, rent it, and you're not going to refinance it and get your money out. So, Scott, if you are looking to replace your income now, burring will not replace your income now. Burring will help 67-year-old Scott. So if you burr a property now, you're, if you're 47, well, 67-year-old Scott's going to really be happy with you for burring, right? He's going to be really happy that you bought some properties, that you deferred your gratification, and that now 67-year-old Scott has this, $500,000 house that you bought and renovated for 350. So you had 120,000, $130,000 of equity, because obviously, remember, you had your financing costs. So, that house will most likely be paid off in about 20 years. So 67-year-old Scott's going to really love 47-year-old Scott if you burr. But 47-year-old Scott is not going to love 47-year-old Scott for burring. So, what I would try and do is I would try and flip and burr simultaneously, right? And then Scott goes on to asking the question about setting up a property management company. I can tell you from a lot of experience, property management is a thankless, hateful space of real estate. Nobody's ever happy with you. Your investors and your owners are always annoyed with you because, they just want to get paid every month, mailbox money. And they're going to blame you personally for every maintenance item that ever shows up in their houses forever. So that's your client is pretty much never going to be happy with you. And then your other client, your tenant, is always complaining about, a maintenance item here, a maintenance item there. And so at 47 years of age, I wouldn't be setting up a property management company. I think it's a great thing to set up in your 20s and 30s when you've got the energy and you've got the resilience. But I know a lot of people who went into property management kind of later in their life. And property management is an amazing, amazing way to make money. And if you can scale it, and you're a natural born leader, and you're good at hiring, and you are good at delegating, and you're good at holding people to account, but 47 years of age probably wouldn't be what I would be doing. So it sounds to me like you have you're juggling a fair few things, and I think the real nub of your question is that you have a paradox of choice, and I think that that's what we'll do for the rest of this podcast. Ed Clark, what do you think, to deal with this paradox? If I was Scott, and this is just my opinion, I would flip and burr right away, and I would dispel any thoughts of wholesaling and property management. I just think they're not worth it at his age. But Scott seems to have this paradox, and a paradox is often your worst enemy, where you get actually nothing done. You like, oh, I'm going to learn everything about wholesaling, and I'm going to learn everything about flipping. I'm going to learn everything about owning a property management company. I'm going to learn everything about burring. And I've seen people do this in real estate over and over and over again. And guess what they end up doing, Clark?
Nothing.
Big fat zero, right? So what we'll do is we'll dive into this kind of shiny object syndrome and this paradox, okay? And so, Clark, I've given my opinion on what I think Scott's route should be, and there's more to that, I'm sure. But why do people, when they are in this situation, why do they build up this like multi-layered? Oh, I think I should do this, and a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and a bit of this, and a bit of that. Why do people do that, Clark?
And well, we all face that bridge, and there's a few reasons. And if I was in Scott's shoes, I would run as far from property management as I could. Like as fast, I would get in the, I would rent the fastest sports car and drive as far away from it as I could. I think that there's a place for property management, but from the people that I've talked to that are a lot smarter than me and they have a lot more real estate than I do, is that they are in property management out of being able to create more economies of scale through the properties they own. Okay. So it's like they were buying properties and it got to the point where they're like, hold on, I can just do this better because I have enough properties. I have a big enough staff of employees to justify managing the properties myself. But they didn't get out as it started out as a property management company and then bought properties. They did it the opposite way. So if you don't have a lot of properties, then I would run as fast as possible away from that. Now, to your question, and then also too, again, if you're 47, I'm not wholesaling one freaking house. I don't want to get into that. You're going to be competing with a bunch of 22-year-olds that are working all night, all day, trying to learn every new AI thing. I would not be interested in that as well too. Speaking as a 40-year-old, it's not something I want to do. And but the quickest way to get to money, I think most people in real estate would agree, is fixing and flipping, right? So with that being said, but why do we have, and the point of this episode is like, we have all these opportunities, right? So why is it that we want to have multiple streams of income versus maybe just getting really, really good at one thing and then doubling down and getting better at that one thing, right? I think the challenge is, this is a challenge I face, and I'll give you an example, is that I started my fix and flip wholesale real estate business in 2015, got it going. I was all about it. I didn't let anything else distract me. I wanted to learn how to wholesale. I wanted to learn how to renovate a house. I want to learn how to underwrite so I could figure out what to offer, right? And I was so focused on that. And then guess what happened? About 2.5 years in, David, I started getting better at it and I started making pretty good money. And I was like, this is good. I like this. But then I started seeing other people that started other businesses. I was like, maybe I could do that business as well too. Maybe I could have a second stream of income, right? Now, the business I have currently is doing well, but it's not, I'm not going to the Bahamas every weekend on vacation because it's just printing money, right? And so what I think happened is that I lacked self-awareness to be able to look in the mirror and say, Clark, before you go out and you try and create a whole new stream of income with a whole different business or different geography. I see it a lot with real estate guys where they're flipping in their backyard or they're wholesaling in their backyard. And then all of a sudden they want to go, let's just say they're in our neck of the woods in like Central Florida. And they're like, you know what? I heard that like Charlotte, North Carolina is like the next place to wholesale. And then they go to Charlotte, North Carolina to wholesale. And they're like, Macon, Georgia. That's like the third one. I'm like, what the hell? Like that you're not going to create that. But are you going to Macon, Georgia? You're not going to Macon, Georgia if your main business is just so successful, right? So it's kind of like your lack of self-awareness about that your company's really not doing as well as it should be doing. And instead of fixing it and facing the problem head on, you're just kind of jumping to another market to take your business that's running at 75% capacity and then just throwing it over the fence to Charlotte to see if Charlotte's going to bail you out. Like Charlotte's any different from anywhere else, right? So I think that you face challenges, David, because there is the newness wears off of that business, right? And it's like you got two options. You can step back, you can learn a little bit more, you can find new tools, you can get reinvigorated. but it's not very shiny. It's not that sexy anymore, but going to a new market, oh, that's super sexy. So I think that fighting through that boredom is one of the biggest challenges that we face as entrepreneurs, to be able to take that next step in your existing main business and not just trying to go out to the next hottest girl or whatever it is and go talk to her for a while, right? And part of it too is just, David, it's just laziness. I think by nature we're kind of just lazy, and it's like, I got to delay my gratification. I got to go out there and find new tools, or I could just kind of do what I'm pretty good at and then replicate it somewhere else. Or, I heard my buddy was selling life insurance, and he set up a life insurance company, and God, I could do that too. I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure it'll work out. So I think that just laziness of just trying to always be giving back to yourself, investing in yourself, investing in your craft, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money, it takes resilience. And sometimes it's easier to be like, oh, this one's kind of on autopilot. Let me just go over here and try something new. And, the last thing that I'll say, and I'm guilty of this. And one of the things is that if you go on social media, if you're on YouTube, if you're trying to learn, you're trying to get your craft to the highest possible thing, everyone is a guru. Everyone is talking about all these opportunities, David, that you can do and make in whatever that is, whether it's drop shipping or Airbnbs or, there's just so many things that you can put your time, effort, and money into. And it's hard. It's hard not to watch that and be like, shit, this guy's buying boutique hotels, David. It's STR good to go. It's printing. Maybe I should just start doing boutique hotels in California. That sounds good, right? And it's like, shit, this guy's doing it and he's doing a really good job. Maybe I need to do that as a side hustle. It's so hard. And I'll give you an example. Is like, I've always, when I've been on the road in my kind of in sales, right? You're on the road a lot. Well, a lot of times you get hungry during the middle of the day. You got two options. You can pack your sandwich and, eat your ham and cheese sandwich on the side of the road, or you can just swing through. You're probably in a hurry and go to fast food, right? So I started saying, like, I can't eat fast food. Fast food's horrible for you, right? But you're driving down the damn road and you pass like 97 McDonald's, 16 Burger Kings, 19 Panera Breads between your 2 o'clock appointment and your 3 o'clock appointment. It is damn hard to eat that ham and cheese sandwich that you made this morning when you're passing all of these shiny red balls, right? And it's not easy, and it tests it hits on all your weaknesses. Let me just pull into this Panera Bread and just grab some food really quick, even though it's probably not very healthy for me. And I think that's kind of what these shiny red opportunities that we have all the time of like, what's the flavor of the month? Is it self-storage? David, let's do some self-storage. I heard a guy and he's doing a podcast on it. And so it's very difficult to be driving down the road and keep your blinders straight so that you're not so distracted by all the McDonald's and all of the different fast food. And the Chick-fil-A just came out with a new chicken sandwich, right? And you say, you know what, I'm eating my ham and cheese sandwich that I made this morning. And if you are able to kind of eat that damn ham and cheese sandwich and do that, you're going to be so much better off than if you're just constantly stopping at the McDonald's, because you're just giving in and you're not delaying your gratification. So I think that those are some of the ways, David, as to why we think that we need, I need to have my main income, then I need to have some Airbnb income, and then I've got this Amazon e-commerce store that I'm doing, because that's good. Because then if one doesn't work, then the others will fill in the gap, right? So I think that is something where if you really dive in deep in one area, you're going to compound your efforts. And it's like anything, it doesn't happen all at once, but you keep turning it over and you get better and better. So David, I've kind of given a lot of the reasons why I think our psychology and society says we need a bunch of different streams of income. And I think that that's probably a little bit about what Scott's facing. Talk to us a little bit about what happens when you have those. So we now know why we are being faced with these multiple streams is like a good thing. Talk to us a little bit about what happens when you start spreading yourself a little bit thin.
I've got so much to unpack right there. Right off the bat, we're talking about, this paradox of choice. And so you go on to social media these days, and, you can be an options trader. You can have AI make YouTube videos for you, and you can, you know, flip homes, or you can set up, like you say, drop shipping, or, Jenny made $30,000, selling children's books last month. And so
Right.
you got this crazy paradox, just streaming into your social media. And that's just mind bending. How are you meant to choose one thing? And so I'm gonna relate it back to myself. So I have been in the real estate business for a long time, and just a couple of observations. Whenever we would go to sell a house, so we might have six or seven or eight or nine or 10 houses kind of ready in our inventory. And then, like, let's say every Thursday, we'll put a for sale mail out to our database. And instead of like putting six homes that are all ready to go right now, we'll only ever put two. I'll bet you can understand why we'd only put two, because if we put three, we create a paradox. If we put five, we create a bigger paradox. So now everyone who gets to two, they'll research the two and figure out their favorite. But if we give them five, well, all five will choose just the same one. And then
Right.
four of the people who didn't get to buy this one will be disappointed and don't want these ones because they had this little, advantage over here. And it might be the smallest advantage. It makes no difference whatsoever. But it's something I observed over the years, that if the more choice you give a human, right, the more kind of research they'll kind of get into, and then they'll become kind of blindsided by the choice optionality. And so we would always try to put out even just one deal at a time. Like, here's a house, and we might have 10 people want it, and you'd say, look, we'll get you the next one, right? And so also driving around in my car for over 10 years with clients, I would have particularly younger investors in their 30s, and they will have studied every book. They'll have read every real estate, newsletter out there. They've listened to, I mean, scores and scores of podcasts, and every episode of each one of those. And
Right.
so they get in my car, and quite frankly, they know more of the lingo, more of the language, more of the buzzwords, more of the strategies. And, you know, I'll ask them, I'll say, how many deals have you done? And they'll tell me more often than not. I bet you can guess the answer, Clark.
Right. A big donut again.
Yeah, another donut, right? They won't have done anything. And so they'll ask what my advice is, and I'll say, okay, stop the education. Stop it now, right? This is your making decisions time. You've done all the education. To answer Scott's questions, you've probably researched the heck out of all of these different things.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that, you know, get into one and go deep in it. Now, I'm going to talk about the difference between going deep and going wide. And I'm going to do so, but through a very personal story. And so when I get into real estate, first, I got into international real estate. We were, to our international episode that we did last week, we were doing um, projects all over the world, right? All over the globe. And then in 2008, we're like, great opportunity in the United States. Dollar is, 50% discounted. The housing is 50% discounted. Let's get ourselves over to Florida and see if we can get some deals done. But very quickly, we were in Texas, Virginia, North Carolina, you know, all over Florida, Orlando, Miami, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Gainesville. We're just all over the place. And as my life has continued, right? You have this, you're spread so thin, you can't really focus anywhere. I only really, really started to get successful when I stopped the traveling, and I went, I'm going to go deep right here in Tampa. And not only am I going to go deep because there's Tampa and then there's St. Petersburg, right? But I'm going to go deep in a very particular niche. I'm going to go after 1970s block homes, right? So where are they? And then I found out when I started to carve it down, I'm like, there's an area of 1970s block homes here, here, and here. So now I'm looking at particular neighborhoods. I'm like, there's 3 neighborhoods that were built in the 70s. And then I drilled deeper into those. And I got to the point where we could make phone calls and, and buy a house in 10 seconds. Or somebody could call me, say, David, I got this house on, Grand Avenue. I'm like, okay, what number? And they'll tell me the number and I'll know the number. I'll know the street. I go, okay. So you got, 1262 Grand Avenue. And okay, what is it? It's a 3-2, da 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 da. What do you want for it? Da 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 da. Tell me about the roof. It's newer or it's older. Tell me about the AC. It's older. Tell me about the inside. Cosmetics. Okay, cool. Yeah, send me over a contract. I'll do this all while walking down the street. I'll buy it without seeing it. And so by going deep, you get to yes quicker, right? The more spread out you are, if you're sitting in California and you're trying to do deals in North Carolina or in Indianapolis or, God knows where, and you don't know the streets, and then you got to call somebody else up who may have a different agenda than you, right? That's kind of super hard. So if you're trying to invest out of state, get very, very familiar with one place, right? Get very familiar with one town. And then within the town or city, get familiar with like 4 neighborhoods, right? So the more drilled down you are, the faster you get to yes, and the faster you get to making real money every single time a deal comes up in that neighborhood. Now, guess what the advantage is? You're able to, the house, the construction type, the neighborhood, the schools, right? Now, the further advantages. If you've done a deal there before, you know a roofer who works that neighborhood, an electrician who works that neighborhood, an AC guy who works that neighborhood, your contractor who works that neighborhood, a landscaper who works that neighborhood, a property manager who works that neighborhood. This is your team. Now, if you're buying 40 miles this way on the other side of the city, guess where your team's not going? Because all of these trades, they work within 20 miles of their houses. And they're not driving 55 miles to work every day and 55 miles back. They're not doing that for you. So by going deeper and deeper and deeper and narrower and narrower and narrower into your world, that is where the riches are in real estate. And it's that simple. And that's my advice to Scott. Go deep, identify the city, identify the easiest type of building in your city. So I wouldn't go straight into 1920s frame homes. That's going to be a lot of headaches right there for you, right? Don't go into, 1980s, paint and carpets homes is a great place to start. It's paint, it's carpets, it's roof, it's an AC. The only issue I have with those homes is they're slightly bigger. So they're a more expensive renovation. But do not spread yourself too thin, right? Just don't. And when I got together with you, Clark, if you recall, I was like, let's get focused. Because shiny object syndrome is the most damaging thing you can do to yourself in your career. And particularly as you get to you're trying to find a new career, you're in your mid 40s, you're trying to find a new place to fit in the world, right? Just drill down into one thing. Stay there. Do not try and be a jack of all trades. And here's an interesting one, Clark, that I think I've told you before. If you ever go to a RIA meeting, right? RIA meeting is a real estate investor group meeting. There's one they're like AA meetings. There's one going on everywhere. There's one going on in your town right now, right?
Yeah.
And there's really three groups of people in that RIA meeting. There's the young go-getters. These are the guys who are like trying to get into real estate, and they're sitting right up front and they're listening and they're enthusiastic. And then you get to like the midstream people who are doing it. They're your lenders, they're your actual flippers, they're your active guys, they're your wholesalers, they're experienced, they're your experienced flippers, they're your experienced, your hard money guys. They're all there, right? And they're there to do business. And then you get the third cohort, which is the 78-year-olds. And they're literally sitting in the back of the room, completely disinterested. And they'll reading their newspapers, and they'll peer over their page from time to time if somebody says something interesting. And honestly, I think they're there to get out of the house. But you go talk to those guys, and there's a funny thing that an older, experienced real estate person will tell you every single time. It's like, yeah, I started investing in New York or in Pennsylvania, and then I was investing all over Florida, and then I was investing all over Tampa, and now if I can't walk to it from my house, I'm not going. I'm not buying it. And it's funny as I see, I heard that about 12 years ago from an older investor, and I see it happening to myself. It's like, if I can't get to my properties now within 5 minutes, I'm probably not going. And the biggest mistakes that I see people making, and particularly in the large multifamily world, I'm not going to name names, but people who get into these big 3, 4, 500 unit deals outside of their city, and particularly in small rural places, like, oh yeah, we just bought a 500 unit in, or let's say a 120 unit in some town you've never heard of. Well, guess what? There's only one roofer in that town, and if he's sick, you're not getting your roof done, right? And you can get really, really bogged down trying to get work done where you don't have infrastructure, or where you're relying on other people to do these things for you. And so stay close to home. That would be it. Get focused and go deep, know your product, and stop with the shiny red ball syndrome, right? Just flipping works, wholesaling works, property management works. They all work. But do you want to work? And, quite frankly, what kind of work do you want to do? And, I would say take your ego, keep the shiny red balls outside your life, right? Keep social media to a minimum. Stop listening to the people telling you how amazing they're doing, or they do nothing. They figured out this new way of making money out of nothing. Don't do things because you want to have 20, 30, 50 million dollars, right? That's probably your ego talking, And I think you and I've talked about this before a lot, Clark, is resources. What are the resources you have? You got time, you got energy, and you got money. That's it. That's all we've got. And you've got limited time, and you got limited energy, and most of us have limited money. So, can you give me an example of something like that, Clark, of what we've been talking about, like people who are, spread so thin that they get nothing done, right? So, what do you think of what I've just said? Is that as I've gotten older, I've just gotten more and more and more focused into what it is that I want to do. And then I just go deep in it, and I don't get bored with it. You mentioned boredom, right? Most people get really, really, really good at flipping, where they can make a lot of money. And guess what happens to them, Clark? They get bored flipping. They get bored making 4, 5, 6, 700, 800, a million, more than $1 million, $2 million a year. They get bored with it. They want to, it's a natural progression that I go into large multifamily. And then a lot of people will try and break into that world. Some do. But guess what? A lot of them mess up, absolutely screw up all the good stuff that they've done by if you just stayed small and mighty, instead of getting yourself into a whole world of pain here. So avoid the boredom side of it, play golf, go learn to ski, do like hike or something, but get good at something, stay good at it. And then you asked a really great question earlier on, is at what point do you get multiple income streams? You buy multiple income streams from the one thing that you got good at. So hear that again. Get really good at one thing. Get focused at that one thing. Be able to say yes quickly to that one thing. Okay? So that when people call you, you know it. You're aware of it. And so when you buy it, you just send out your text message to your roofer, your landscaper, your AC, your plumber, your contractor. They all know each other. Bang, you get the project done. You use the same sheet, the same Google sheet you can use with all of your different contractors. So you get all of that done quickly. Now, that's when you do one thing and you repeat it as a template. Do it once, do it 10 times, do it 100 times, do it 400 times, do it 1,000 times. Then you're going to start creating enough money to now buy different income streams. You can buy hard money loans. You could be the lender. You can buy into debt funds where they just give you a large return for your money. You can buy into dividend stocks. You can buy into small businesses. You can invest in other people's endeavors and they'll give you a cut of their. So the multiple income stream thing is when you have done one thing really well and you've made money and then you buy into multiple income streams. That's when you diversify. You don't diversify when you've got no money. Learn one thing, knock it out of the ballpark, make lots of money, and then diversify by investing into those diversified income streams. What do you think of that, Clark?
So David, if you have, again, going back to the beginning, right? It's like, why have multiple income streams or not? So it's kind of simple especially I was just formulating this as I was listening to you talk, is if you're having to diversify your time, then you're not going to be successful if you don't have any money invested. So you don't diversify your time, right? You need to go very, very deep in one thing. I don't care whether you're flipping or you're selling cookies on the side of the road. If you're going to be the best person selling cookies on the side of the road, don't go flip a house across the street and sell cookies at the same time, because you're diversifying your time. You diversify your investments, the capital that you have. So once you've gone deep and you're the best person selling cookies on the side of the street and it's kicking off a great income and it's going well and you've got all this cash sitting there, okay, now is time to diversify your investments. But if you're having to go start a drop shipping business and sell cookies on the side of the street at the same time, all you're going to do is just pull resources and time and energy from both. Exactly. And you're just going to have two extremely average companies at best. You're just going to have a job. We all get into entrepreneurship to get out of a job, right? And all you're doing is just buying a job, right? So I think that that's very, very important, is that if you're like doing job A or you're running company A, and then you decide to start a new business or buy a new business and you're dividing your time now between those two, then it's probably not a good fit. I feel like that's a good litmus test to be able to quickly say no to the things that aren't going to be helpful in getting you to where you want to go. Something you said earlier that I liked, but I'm going to give you something I think is better, is going deep, right? You said, hey, look, we've got to go deep. And you named off a lot of really good reasons as to how you create momentum and how you're able to scale much quicker, and it's less brain damage, and you're not starting and stop, right? However, here's where I would push back. And it's not about how quickly you can say yes. It's about how quickly you can say no. Okay. We have opportunities coming at us at all times, right? And I'm glad that you gave the example of kind of like, I'm going to buy a certain type of house. It's going to be built in a certain type of year in a certain type of neighborhood, right? Well, guess what? People are going to send you opportunities of houses that were built in 1955 or 1925, or they're going to be slightly outside that neighborhood, right? And what happens is you're like, well, hold on. Is there profit? Like, even though it's built in 1955, but there's good profit in it, right? And then you put it on your to-do list. You like get on your Apple phone, you like put in the notes, go run numbers on 123 Main Street, right? And then another deal comes in from 45 minutes away somewhere else. Oh, but there's profit, right? So you're like, well, let me do 456 Main Street, right? And then you start adding all these to-do things to your list and they add up, and then it gets stressful, right? If you're able to just say, that doesn't hit the 5 criteria. No. It's in a flood zone. No, I don't even want to look. I don't care how much profit there is. When you start to prioritize a process over profit, you are going to be so much more successful, so much quicker, and you become the expert in the room. Because at the end of the day, if you are, I always know this. I want to go back to your real estate meeting thing. And here's an easy way to find out the guys you want to talk to in the room. Whoever's wearing like the Hawaiian shirt and like the baggy cargo shorts and like the $10 t-shirt and the flip-flops, go talk to those people. The guy that's in a suit, they're there for, they're not going to be able to probably help you as much as the guy with all the wisdom and the Hawaiian shirt and the ruffled hair, right? That's sitting in the back of the room reading the newspaper. But if you're able to do those type of things, you're going to be able to create so much more momentum. And ultimately, you said all those things, but when opportunities are coming at you and you're able to bat them away as quickly as possible, no, that doesn't meet what I want to do, then you're still staying focused. Yep. You're driving down that road to get better, and it compounds, right? But if you're constantly distracted, and again, here's a quick story, is I know that once I was creating success in my real estate business, we had an opportunity to get into the insurance business, right? And guess what we did? We started an insurance agency. And guess what happened? It pulled resources away from our real estate company, okay? It pulled money, it pulled time, it added additional stress because now we had a totally different industry that we were going into. And ultimately, we just robbed Peter to pay Paul. And it wasn't a success. But then what did I do, David? I was like, did I learn from my mistakes or did I not, right? Did I listen to this episode or did I not listen to it? We were like, you know what? Let's start a property management company because we have these properties that make sense. Well, we didn't have enough properties for it to make sense. And so we started a property management company, and that actually failed much quicker, which was probably a good thing that it failed much quicker than the insurance agency. It failed in like 6 months. And I ran back and gave all my properties back to my property managers that were managing it and said, thank you. I don't ever want to do this again. So if I get into a time machine and go talk to my 2017 Clark, I would say, Clark, just keep doing that thing that makes you money and stop looking at all the other hot girls at the bar. Like, stay with that hot girl that you have at the bar and stop getting distracted by all these different shiny red balls, because all they're going to do is rob your time. They're going to rob your ability to be the best at one damn thing. And that is a big learning lesson that I've had. And then being able to take that within your own business, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to just do this one business and I'm not going to go and start drop shipping and then do Airbnbs and buy a boutique hotel. So I'm just going to flip houses, right? So then it's like within that industry, I'm just going to flip houses in this geographic box that are going to meet this type of criteria. Either they're built from this to this, they're in a flood zone, they're not in a flood zone, they're on a busy street, they're not. And you have your criteria. And the way that I have my litmus test when I talk to anyone, if I go to a networking meeting, I don't care if I'm at the Chamber of Commerce or I'm at a real estate meeting or just an entrepreneurial type meeting, as I ask people, I say, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm in, and they spend like 20 minutes telling me all the things they do. And I'm like, oh, that's good to know, because you don't actually do anything. I hear it all the time. Well, I flip some houses, I keep some as rentals, I'm managing a few Airbnbs, and on the side I do coaching. And I'm like, oh, that's good to know. That means that you probably do none of those well. Maybe you do one of them okay, and then the rest of them you're trying to get into that. The people that I know that I talk to, and I'm like, what do you do? And they say, well, I build houses that are 2,000 to 2,200 square feet. They're 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They have a 2-car garage, and they're between 15th Street and 34th Street in fill in the blank town. They're not in a flood zone, and they're all 2 stories. And I sell them to ex buyers. I'm like, well, that's the guy that is probably the most successful person in this room right here. And it's so easy to tell, because they're so freaking focused on exactly one thing, and they're not building in the next town over, and they're not building 1-story houses over here, and they're not putting green and pink Airbnb doors on their property. They have like the same template in the same area with the same business model, and that's it. And then once you become very, very successful, or they're making $1 million a year, $2 million a year, you still keep doing that, but it enables you to diversify your your cash that you have sitting in the bank to then maybe go as a consulting arm to be able to help build another company, but you're not diversifying your time. So those are kind of some of the things. The last thing I'll leave you guys with too is I've noticed is that there's some like badge of honor that for whatever reason entrepreneurs feel like when they're like, David, someone says, hey Clark, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I own a real estate flipping company, I own rentals, I own a property management company, and I own an insurance company. And it's like, that's some badge of honor that because I own these different companies. I didn't say any of them were successful. I just said I own them. I just said I started an LLC with my name on it, right? And I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs, they get caught up in their ego. You mentioned ego earlier about, well, I own all these different things and I'm just constantly doing this. And on Monday, I'm doing insurance. And on Tuesday, I'm doing property management. And ultimately, I didn't do any of them well, right? And then I was just making the one thing that I did do well a lot worse because I was distracted with those. So don't let your ego get in the way and be able to be the guy that builds houses from this size to this size, from this street to this street. And that's it. So
Right.
David, that's kind of what I, profit over process for sure is something that we try and avoid. So talk to us a little bit about focus and we'll wrap this thing up.
Focus is a superpower. It is, seriously, in our business, the ability to be laser focused and disciplined in that focus is a superpower, because there's about, let's say, 5 or 6 things that you have to do. You've got to get up in the morning. You got to go. In order to be focused, you got to spend an hour doing this, an hour doing that, an hour, let's say an hour sourcing, an hour following up with your sourcing from yesterday, right? An hour getting contracts out the door, an hour getting contracts back in, an hour with your lenders, an hour on contracts management and project management, then an hour on marketing. So in order to get good at let's say, all those things, and particularly this is for Scott, by the way, you have to be an amazing time blocker. So you have to write out those items. So focus on what it is you're trying to do, identify the house that you want to buy, the neighborhood you want to buy in, the price point that you want to buy in. And unless that exact thing comes through your inbox, don't follow it. Oh, there's a property over there. I think there's some spread in it. I think no. Does it fit your thing, right? So focus is a superpower. Stay focused. Number 2, use your time incredibly well. Like, be a good time blocker. Turn off your phone completely for your very highly focused time during the day. Just turn it off. Don't, because in our business particularly, your inbox, your email inbox is always binging and bonging. And there's always somebody with a, hey, David, I've got this deal, or hey, David, I've got this thing, or hey, David, you didn't get that over to me, or a client that you sold property to me before comes in and say, hey, do you have a minute for a call? We live in a modern world where focus is almost impossible to do. And I heard a great podcast about focus recently, where we all want to focus. We're like, yeah, I get it. We all want to focus, but you can't, because we have wives, we have children, we have phones, we have email, we have WhatsApp, we have text messages, we have the phone itself is ringing. Then you have meetings, and you have Slack messages, and then you've got your calendar binging and bonging with you, and your meetings you forgot about are coming in 5 minutes, and you're like, I'm getting nothing done today. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I'm just so familiar with that thought, I'm getting nothing done today, you are not focused. It's that simple. You are not structuring your day for you. You're structuring your day for others, and you're being led by the nose every day. And I'll bet you, if you live this life, I'll bet you'll say, oh, I tried to get something done yesterday, I didn't get it done. I tried to get something last week done, I didn't get it done either. And ask yourself, when's the last time you finished a book, without getting sidetracked? And so real estate, the money and the winnings go to the person who is most focused. The person who knows what he's looking for, who can act quickly, respond quickly, identify quickly. So if something hits my inbox, right? And it's in my wheelhouse, I'm on the phone within 6 seconds, right? And I'm not letting that person off the phone until they send me a contract, because I don't want anyone else who's as focused as me to be calling. So I'll get them on the phone. I'm like, okay, they tell me this, tell me that, tell me the other. Okay, send me a contract. Nobody is getting there faster than me, because I know what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. It's where I'm looking for it, and it's the right price. And then I have the teams that could go in, and that's exactly what they want to do. That's the right type of roof that they want. That's the job that my contractor does. That's the kind of job that he wants to do. I don't have to redesign it. I've used exact same color, same tile, same template, same everything, right? That's what focus is, right? So focus is a superpower. If you are having to rebuild your wheel every single time, good luck. You're competing with guys who are focused. Now,
Yeah.
let's see what we can do here to leave people with some kind of actionable takeaway here. So identify, I wouldn't say what your passion is, but identify what you're good at. All right, identify, what you like to do, okay? And then get focused with it. If we're talking about real estate, if we're talking about drop shipping or whatever, laser focus on that. Don't think that you can do drop shipping in the morning and bake cakes in the afternoon and be a fitness instructor at 6 p.m. and then trade options at 10 p.m. You're not going to do any of those things well. So find your focus. It's probably after a while going to get a little bit boring, and know that that's exactly when people screw up. I get it's a little bit boring. You have to have a tenacity, because the people who are successful around you are tenacious. And if you're like half-assing it, and you're like trying to find any different way you can to get unfocused, you find yourself scrolling on a phone, or you find yourself reading your email 10 times a day. Because remember, there is no reward for having an empty inbox at the end of the day. You get, how many dollars do you get paid, Clark, for having no emails in your inbox every day? I don't believe anyone pays you for having.
I'll have to go check my bank account, and we'll update it on the next episode. But I don't think I have any deposits yet. But we'll see. Hopefully, the next episode there will be for email checking.
Right. Now, remember, part-time effort, right? Part-time results. That's it. You're competing with people who are full-time. If you're part-time, they're full-time. They're going to get the cheese. You're not. More importantly, and particularly as, get into 47, 48, you probably have kids. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you have kids, your time is limited, really limited, right? By the time you get them out in the morning, then you got to help them with their homework. Like, you don't have much time. So be honest and truthful with how much time you have. Be honest and truthful with how much money you have and how much energy you have. These sound like silly things, but your energy is precious. I can only make 5 or 6 passionate calls a day, if you will. Then after that, I'm just like, I'm done. I'm spent. So, I don't know about, and then, so get focused. Be realistic about how much time you actually have. Time block carefully. Know that if you're dossing around all day, you've been led by the nose by emails all day, you're going to get nothing done. What about leveraging your existing resources, right? So if you want to, Scott, if you're trying to get into being a flipper at 47, go offer some value. I know you've heard this in other podcasts, but go to a RIA meeting and try and shadow somebody. Try and get yourself a mentor, like somebody who's done it before. But you got to offer them something. You can't just show up and ask them to help you. They're not going to. They have limited time, and more importantly, mentors have laser focus themselves, right? So they're not going to allow noise into their world, right? I just know, as we head out the door here, that once you get focused, Clark, how many times have you heard me say this? That I could be a little bit more than real estate, but I say it towards real estate. What you get out is directly proportional to what you put in every day. Yeah. If you put focused work in at the end of the day, you get results and it's measurable. But if you're kind of unfocused and you're kind of just racing over here and you're meeting Guy for lunch and then you're meeting, you're hopping on mastermind calls and then you're jumping on some other, some webinars and then you're checking your email. You've done a big fat zero that day. You might have learned something, but learning is not doing. So,
Yeah.
Scott, what you get out of your future will be directly proportional to what you put in. Multiple income streams are what you do after you've made money. But if you want to make money, you're in a nuclear arms race with the people around you who also want to make money. Get laser focused, identify your time, treat your energy as precious, know what you're looking for. That's it. That's what I've got on the topic, Clark.
So I think we both agree. There's not much debate here. Is that you got to go deep. You don't want to go wide, especially when you're starting out and you're trying to create money or create revenue, active income, things like that. Don't get distracted, and you're going to be much more successful, much faster, and you're not going to be have your time all divided. So remember, if you're asked to diversify something, are you diversifying your time, or are you diversifying your capital that you have to invest? And if you're asked to diversify your time and you're focused on one, and now you got to take some of that time and go give it to the across the fence, I would have a quick answer to say no. I'm staying and I'm not diversifying my time. I've got to make money first. Now, once I have money, can I diversify some of that capital and put it into another multiple stream of income? Then yes, right. But just saying, oh, I've got multiple streams of income, that doesn't tell the whole story. Probably a lot of people that are listening to this are like, how do I get multiple streams of income? But they haven't created this really nice system first. You got to have the system first. You got to have the business first. And you got to be 1,000% focused on that and going to war every single day to build that, and then get better and learn new techniques and stay focused and not have a bunch of shiny red balls bouncing all over the place that you're answering emails for that, or talking about the latest and greatest way to, the latest side hustle. Who cares about that side hustle? You're focused on one thing. Go read The One Thing by Gary Keller. It's a great book. David's got it right in front of him. If you're watching this on YouTube, what's your one thing, or the one thing? It's great. And with that, I think that
Probably the most important real estate book there is, right?
I think I wouldn't. It's not even a real estate book. I think it's just the one thing, right? Just in business. So, David, we beat this dead horse. I think the listeners see where we're parked, and I think learn from a lot of our mistakes. Please go on. If you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button. Reach out to us on all our social medias at Burn Your Boats Wealth, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whichever is your preferred platform. Also, too, we want to start some new things. So, David, I'm going to quickly go through some housekeeping items. Number one is we're going to give away a free calculator to determine if you're looking to buy a passive rental property, right? Does it actually make money in this climate with interest rates at 8, 7, 9, wherever you're parked in terms of your lending capabilities? We'll give that away for free. So just DM us rental calculator and we'll send it to you for free. And I have not seen this out there yet because it actually tells you if you make money. And the second thing is that we are, if you have, a lot of people are reaching out to us, and it helps to be able to understand a little bit more about your situation. We're doing free 15-minute consultation calls. So basically just reach out to us and say, I'd like a free 15-minute consultation call. We'll jump on with you and figure out if we can help you and kind of figure out where you want to point the fire hose. If you're at a trajectory in your life and you're not sure whether to zag left or zag right. And so we want to give value back to you guys. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you listening to us, and we want to create a ton of passive investing millionaires through our podcast. That's kind of like one of our big why moments of doing this podcast. So please reach out to us. Don't be shy. There's no dumb questions. We'll do a 15-minute consultation call. We'll DM us for the free rental calculator. That's the easiest way to be able to figure out if a property is quote unquote a good rental or not. And I think we're going to do an episode, David, on how to figure out if a property actually is a good rental or not. regardless of what it says on the ad from the realtor that says, oh, this is a great rental property. And then you plug in the numbers and it may say otherwise. So with that, David, you got anything else before we hop off?
Yeah, just remember this whole podcast, this whole episode was because Scott sent in a question.
Yeah.
So please send us in questions. We would love to deal with them. I think this gave us a great idea for an episode. And yeah, I just think this was a lot of value today. I enjoyed making it, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Scott, hope this helped, buddy. Talk soon.
You've been listening to the Burn Your Boats podcast with Clark Lunt and David Shaw. We would love to hear from you. Please reach out at burnyourboatswealth.com with comments, questions, and if you have a topic you would like Clark and David to discuss on an upcoming episode. We would very much appreciate it if you took the time to rate and review Burn Your Boats podcast on your favorite podcast listening app, and make sure to follow and share on social media. Content in Burn Your Boats podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is not legal or financial advice. Please review our legal disclaimer at burnyourboatswealth.com. Thank you for listening.